Imagine this. You're having a terrible day. Maybe you just lost your job, had a falling out with a friend, or got some bad news about your health. You decide to open up to someone about how you feel, and instead of empathy, they hit you with, "Just think positive," or "Everything happens for a reason." Sounds familiar? Now, at first glance, that advice might seem harmless, maybe even helpful. But what if I told you that this kind of forced positivity, what psychologists call toxic positivity, can actually be dangerous for your mental health? Today, we're diving into the dark side of positive thinking, why it's not always helpful, how it can actually make things worse, and what we should do instead. Stick with me, because by the end of this video, you'll not only understand why forcing happiness is a trap, but also how to create real, lasting emotional resilience. Let's break this down carefully. Positive thinking in itself isn't bad. In fact, optimism can be a great tool for motivation, resilience, and problem solving. But when positivity is used to ignore, dismiss, or suppress real emotions, it turns into something harmful: toxic positivity. So what exactly is toxic positivity? Toxic positivity is the belief that no matter how bad things get, you must always maintain a positive mindset. It's the idea that feeling sad, frustrated, or anxious is somehow wrong, and that if you just choose happiness, everything will magically be okay. This might sound harmless at first, but in reality, it can be damaging because it discourages people from dealing with their real emotions. You've probably encountered toxic positivity in different ways. Maybe without even realizing it, you've experienced it, or even participated in it. Here are some common examples. Let's say someone opens up about something difficult, and instead of receiving support, they hear things like, "Just think positive. Everything happens for a reason. At least it's not worse. Don't be so negative. Others have it worse than you." While these statements might come from good intentions, they minimize what the person is feeling. It sends the message that struggling is a weakness, when in reality, it's just a normal part of life. Ever scrolled through Instagram and felt like everyone else's life is perfect? That's toxic positivity in action. Social media often portrays an unrealistic version of happiness, where everyone is always smiling, traveling, or achieving their goals. This creates a pressure to always appear happy, even when you're not. If you're feeling down, it might make you wonder, "What's wrong with me?" But the truth is, no one is happy all the time. The people posting those pictures have struggles too. They just don't show them. Many workplaces push the idea of constant positivity, even in stressful environments. You might hear, "No negativity here, only positive vibes. Don't complain, just be grateful you have a job. We're a family here, no room for negativity." But when employees feel pressured to stay positive all the time, it prevents real discussions about burnout, stress, and mental health. This kind of culture leads to toxic work environments where problems are swept under the rug instead of addressed. Sometimes friends and family, without realizing it, push toxic positivity. Let's say you tell a loved one you're feeling down and they respond with, "You should be grateful for what you have. Other people have bigger problems than you. Just smile. Happiness is a choice." While gratitude is important, these kinds of responses can make you feel guilty for having normal human emotions. Instead of feeling supported, you feel dismissed. Why do people engage in toxic positivity? If toxic positivity is so harmful, why do people do it? Most of the time, people don't mean to be dismissive. They just don't know how to handle uncomfortable emotions. Here are some reasons why people resort to toxic positivity. 1. Discomfort with negative emotions. Many people feel uneasy when someone else is struggling. Instead of sitting with those uncomfortable feelings, they try to fix the situation by offering quick, overly positive statements. But here's the thing. Not every problem needs to be fixed. Some just need to be heard. 2. Cultural expectations. Some cultures strongly emphasize being strong, resilient, and optimistic no matter what. Expressing sadness, frustration, or vulnerability is sometimes seen as a weakness rather than a natural human experience. But bottling up emotions doesn't make them go away. It makes them worse. 3. The self-help industry's influence. The idea that you can manifest happiness and success just by thinking positively is big business. Many self-help books, motivational speakers, and social media influencers sell the idea that if you just believe hard enough, everything will work out. But this oversimplifies human psychology. While positive thinking can be helpful, real emotional well-being requires more than just smiling through the pain. The key takeaway is, toxic positivity is not about encouragement or optimism. It's about denying the reality of emotions. True mental health isn't about feeling good all the time. It's about learning to cope with emotions in a healthy way. What is the psychological damage of forced positivity? So now that we know what toxic positivity is, let's talk about why it's dangerous. At first glance, it might seem like encouraging positivity is a good thing. And in some cases, it can be. Having a hopeful mindset can help us push through difficulties. But when positivity is forced at the wrong time, it can actually harm our mental and emotional health. Psychologists have found that when we ignore, suppress, or deny negative emotions, they don't just disappear. They get stored in our body and mind, often leading to stress, anxiety, and even physical health problems. Let's break down some of the biggest psychological dangers of toxic positivity. 1. Suppressed emotions. Don't disappear. They build up. Imagine you have a small crack in your house's foundation. Instead of fixing it, you just paint over it and pretend it's not there. At first, everything seems fine, but over time, that crack grows. Eventually, the whole structure becomes unstable. This is exactly what happens when we ignore negative emotions instead of addressing them. When someone tells us to just stay positive during tough times, it can feel like they're handing us emotional duct tape, a temporary cover-up, but not a real solution. The emotions are still there, and over time, they pile up like pressure inside a bottle. And what happens when a bottle is overfilled? It explodes. Research shows that suppressing emotions can lead to increased stress, anxiety, and even physical health issues like high blood pressure and weakened immunity. It also makes emotional outbursts more likely, because those unprocessed feelings eventually come out, sometimes in ways we don't expect, like sudden anger, burnout, or even panic attacks. So if you've ever had a moment where you completely lost your cool over something small, it might not be about that single event. It might be the result of months or even years of suppressed emotions finally breaking through. 2. It creates shame around negative emotions. Toxic positivity doesn't just suppress emotions, it makes people feel guilty for even having them. Think about it. If society constantly tells us that we should just be happy and look on the bright side, what happens when we can't? We start to feel like something is wrong with us. Why can't I just be happy? Other people are staying positive. Why can't I? Maybe I'm just not strong enough. This leads to shame, which is one of the most damaging emotions a person can experience. Shame makes us feel unworthy, isolated, and incapable of change. And here's the worst part. Shame actually makes negative emotions stronger. When we feel ashamed of our sadness, we don't process it properly. Instead, we try to hide it, which only makes it linger longer. Psychologists have found that accepting emotions rather than resisting them helps them pass more quickly. But toxic positivity tells us to do the opposite. It tells us to reject and ignore those feelings. And that's where the real damage happens. 3. It can make people feel alone. Now let's say you're going through a tough time and you open up to a friend. Instead of support, you get, just look on the bright side. Everything happens for a reason. Other people have it worse. How does that make you feel? Probably worse. Instead of feeling heard, understood, and supported, you feel dismissed and alone. It's like your emotions don't matter. This is one of the biggest dangers of toxic positivity. It shuts down real connection. When we tell someone to just be positive, we aren't actually helping them. We're shutting down the conversation because their emotions make us uncomfortable. But the truth is, real healing comes from being able to express emotions in a safe space, not from being forced to pretend they don't exist. This is why people who experience toxic positivity often stop opening up altogether. They start isolating themselves because they feel like no one truly understands. And isolation, that only makes things worse. Studies show that emotional suppression and loneliness can increase the risk of depression, anxiety, and even physical illness. 4. It prevents real growth and healing. One of the biggest misconceptions about emotions is that negative feelings are bad. But in reality, every emotion has a purpose. Sadness helps us process loss and change. Anger helps us set boundaries and recognize unfair treatment. Fear helps us protect ourselves from danger. Frustration can push us toward problem solving and growth. When we try to block out these emotions with forced positivity, we miss out on the lessons they have to teach us. Let's say someone experiences a major failure. Maybe they lose their job, fail an exam, or go through a breakup. Toxic positivity tells them, don't feel bad, just move on. Everything happens for a reason. You'll be fine, just be grateful. But what if, instead of forcing happiness, they allowed themselves to sit with the discomfort and ask, what can I learn from this? What does this emotion tell me about what I need? How can I grow from this experience? By acknowledging emotions instead of suppressing them, people can develop true emotional intelligence and resilience. 5. It can lead to emotional burnout. Have you ever felt completely exhausted, not just physically, but emotionally? Like you're drained, numb, and unable to keep up the act anymore? That's emotional burnout. And one of the fastest ways to get there, forcing yourself to be happy all the time. When we constantly suppress emotions, pretend everything is fine, and push ourselves to just stay positive, we use up mental energy at an unsustainable rate. Over time, this leads to increased stress and anxiety, physical exhaustion, emotional numbness, feeling disconnected from your own emotions, loss of motivation, difficulty forming real connections with others. Ironically, toxic positivity doesn't lead to genuine happiness. It leads to burnout and emotional exhaustion. The big picture: why it's okay to feel. Here's the truth: there are no bad emotions. All emotions, positive and negative, are a natural part of being human. The goal isn't to avoid negative emotions. The goal is to learn how to process them in a healthy way. The next time you're feeling sad, stressed, or frustrated, remind yourself, it's okay to feel this way. This emotion has a purpose. I don't need to force myself to be happy. I need to allow myself to be real. Because real happiness doesn't come from avoiding negative emotions. It comes from understanding and working through them. Because the key to a fulfilling life isn't constant positivity, it's emotional authenticity. Where did this idea come from? So, if toxic positivity is so damaging, why do we do it? Why has "just be positive" become such a common response? The self-help industry and social media. Let's be honest, happiness sells. From self-help books to Instagram influencers, the idea that you can think your way into happiness is a multi-billion-dollar industry. But here's the problem: it oversimplifies human emotions. Life is complex. We can't just slap on a smile and pretend everything is fine. True emotional well-being comes from accepting and working through emotions, not ignoring them. Fear of discomfort. A lot of people push toxic positivity because they're uncomfortable with difficult emotions. So, if forcing positivity isn't the answer, what is? The good news is that there's a better way, one that allows us to stay hopeful without ignoring reality. It's called emotional resilience, and it's the ability to handle difficult emotions in a healthy way. This doesn't mean wallowing in negativity or giving up on hope. It means accepting our emotions, processing them properly, and finding real solutions instead of fake positivity. Let's explore some healthy alternatives to toxic positivity, ways we can support ourselves and others without dismissing real emotions. 1. Practice emotional validation instead of dismissing feelings. One of the biggest mistakes people make is trying to fix emotions instead of acknowledging them. For example, if a friend says, "I'm feeling really stressed about work," the toxic positivity response might be, "Just be grateful you have a job. Don't stress so much, it's not that bad." But this shuts down the conversation and makes the person feel unheard. A better approach is emotional validation, letting the person know their feelings are okay and make sense. Instead, you could say, "That sounds really tough. I can understand why you feel that way. Work stress can be overwhelming. Do you want to talk about it?" By validating emotions, we create space for real conversations and emotional healing. Emotional validation isn't just for others. We need to do it for ourselves too. Instead of judging yourself for feeling sad, stressed, or angry, try telling yourself, "It's okay to feel this way. This emotion is trying to tell me something important. I don't need to rush to feel better. I just need to allow myself to feel." When we stop fighting our emotions and start acknowledging them, they actually become easier to process. 2. Embrace realistic optimism instead of blind positivity. Optimism isn't bad. It's just that blind positivity ignores reality while realistic optimism works with it. Toxic positivity says, "Everything is great. Nothing bad can happen. Just think positive and everything will work out." Realistic optimism says, "Things are difficult right now, but I believe I can get through this. This situation is hard, but I can find a way to grow from it." The difference? One denies reality, while the other acknowledges it while still looking for hope. Instead of forcing yourself to just be positive, try asking yourself, "What can I learn from this situation? What small step can I take to improve things? What strengths do I have that can help me through this?" Realistic optimism is about hope with action. It's about believing things can get better, while also taking real steps to make it happen. 3. Allow yourself to process emotions instead of ignoring them. One of the biggest dangers of toxic positivity is that it forces us to suppress emotions. But emotions don't disappear just because we ignore them. They linger, build up, and come out in unhealthy ways. So what's the solution? Processing emotions in a healthy way. Instead of shoving emotions down, try these steps. 1. Name the emotion. Instead of saying, "I feel bad," get specific. Are you feeling sad, frustrated, overwhelmed, or something else? Naming emotions helps us understand them better. 2. Ask what it's trying to tell you. Every emotion has a purpose. Anger might mean your boundaries were crossed. Sadness might mean you need rest or comfort. Stress might mean you need to set priorities. 3. Find a healthy way to express it. This could be journaling, talking to a friend, meditating, or even exercising. The key is to let the emotion move through you instead of holding it in. 4. Give yourself permission to feel. Instead of telling yourself to get over it, remind yourself that it's okay to have emotions. They are part of the human experience. When we process emotions instead of suppressing them, we actually feel better faster, because we're addressing the root cause, not just covering it up. 4th, set boundaries with toxic positivity instead of absorbing it. Let's be honest, some people in our lives constantly push toxic positivity. They might tell us to just be happy or stop complaining when we're struggling. So how do we handle these situations without getting sucked into fake positivity? If someone is pushing toxic positivity on you, you can gently redirect the conversation. "I know you're trying to help, but right now, I just need someone to listen. I appreciate your support, but I need space to process my feelings first." Distance yourself when needed. If someone constantly dismisses your emotions, It's okay to spend less time with them. Surround yourself with people who allow you to be real. Model healthy emotional expression. Instead of forcing positivity, express your own emotions openly. This can encourage others to do the same. You don't have to absorb toxic positivity from others. You can choose emotional honesty instead. 5. Support others in a meaningful way, instead of offering empty positivity. When someone is struggling, our instinct might be to cheer them up. But real support isn't about forcing happiness. It's about being there for them. Instead of saying, "Just think positive," try saying, "That sounds really difficult. I'm here for you. I don't have the perfect words, but I want you to know I care. You don't have to go through this alone." Instead of saying, "Other people have it worse," try saying, "Your feelings are valid no matter what anyone else is going through." Instead of saying, "Everything happens for a reason," try saying, "I know this is hard. If you ever want to talk about it, I'm here." When we support people in an authentic way, we create space for real healing, not just temporary comfort. Toxic positivity tells us that happiness is the only goal, but real emotional health is about embracing the full spectrum of emotions, both positive and negative. Instead of forcing positivity, we can validate emotions instead of dismissing them. Practice realistic optimism instead of blind positivity. Process emotions in a healthy way instead of suppressing them. Set boundaries with toxic positivity instead of absorbing it. Offer real support instead of empty encouragement. Because true happiness doesn't come from pretending bad feelings don't exist. It comes from learning how to deal with them. So the next time someone tells you to just be happy, remind yourself, it's okay to feel, it's okay to struggle, and it's okay to be real. Emotional authenticity is the key to real well-being. So in summary, if forced positivity isn't the answer, what should we do instead? 1. Embrace the full range of emotions. Instead of running from negative emotions, sit with them, acknowledge them. Ask yourself, what am I feeling right now? Why do I feel this way? What is this emotion trying to tell me? For example, if you feel anxious, instead of shutting it down with, "I just need to be positive," try asking, what is this anxiety telling me? Is there something I need to address? 2. Practice realistic optimism. There's a difference between blind positivity and realistic optimism. Blind positivity says, everything is great, even when it's not. Realistic optimism says, this is hard, but I'll get through it. Instead of forcing happiness, focus on growth and resilience. It's okay to acknowledge the struggle while also believing in your ability to overcome it. 3. Support others the right way. The next time someone opens up to you, resist the urge to say, just think positive. Instead, try. That sounds really hard. Do you want to talk about it? I'm here for you. What do you need right now? It's okay to feel this way. I've been there too. Sometimes the best way to help someone isn't to fix their problem, but to sit with them in their pain. The power of authenticity. Here's the takeaway. Real emotional well-being isn't about being happy all the time. It's about being real. Happiness isn't something we can force. It's something that comes naturally when we learn to accept and process all emotions, the good and the bad. So the next time you feel down, remember, you don't have to force yourself to be positive. You just have to be authentic. And if you made it this far, thank you for sticking with me. If this video resonated with you, give it a thumbs up, share it with a friend, and subscribe for more insights on psychology, self-growth, and the human mind. Until next time, take care of yourself.